welcome to you. You're listening to The Music Business Buddy with me, jonnyamos, podcasting out of Birmingham in England. I'm the author of the book, The Music Business for Music Creators, available in hardback, paperback and ebook. I'm a music creator as a writer-producer with various credits. I'm a consultant, an artist manager and a senior lecturer in both music business and music creation. Wherever you are, whatever you do, consider yourself welcome to this podcast and to a part of this community. I'm here to try and educate and inspire music creators from all over the world in their quest to achieving their goals by gaining a greater understanding of the business of music. Okay, I have two fascinating guests with me in this week's episode. Just to give you a little bit of context before I kind of introduce them and set this episode up, I'll just say this, right? So there are a few goals of why I do this podcast. One of them is to try and simplify the music business so that it doesn't scare people and they can enter it and walk proudly through the doors and kick it down and say, hey, I'm here, this is what I do, right? The other part of it is to kind of introduce people into different career pathways that they may not have thought were possible, right? Now, one of the themes that I've kind of started to do in this calendar year so far in 2026 is to talk to various different composers, predominantly multimedia composers, film, television, adverts, all that kind of stuff. And this week I have two really, really high-level guests, right, from Bleeding Fingers. So let me just tell you a little bit about Bleeding Fingers. So if you think about film music, television music, one of the first names that kind of pops to mind is Hans Zimmer. Now, Hans Zimmer set up his own award-winning collective of highly exceptional, sonically diverse composers, right? He set this company up alongside Russell Emanuel and also Stephen Kofsky, and they have a partnership with Extreme Music, which is basically the production arm music of Sony Music Publishing. Now, Bleeding Fingers has created original music for all sorts of productions. I'm just going to list a few here because I could be here for an hour listing all their credits, but here's just a few, right? So, Tattooist of Auschwitz, which is on Sky's Peacock, Planet Earth 3, BBC, Beckham on Netflix, The Blue Angels on Amazon, Frozen Planet 2, BBC, Prehistoric Planet on Apple TV, plus The Simpsons on Fox. Trust me, guys, this list could go on and on and on and on. What we're talking about here is the kind of the really, really upper tier of kind of supreme music making and sound design for the really, really top-notch stuff that you see on TV, right? So just imagine, right, how good you've got to be in order to be a part of that collective, right? So that is why I'm talking to the two guests I'm talking to today, because they fit that bill, right? They are two composers that are a part of the Bleeding Fingers collective. The first is Nico Pacella. So Nico's from Italy. He's now based in Los Angeles. He's a saxophonist and a wind instrument specialist, various percussion instruments, obviously plays piano, sound designs and all sorts of different things. He was educated at the Berklee College of Music in film and video game scoring. He went in on a scholarship and then went from there into Bleeding Fingers. That is how good Nico is, right? He has a lot of different musical influences. He's a very, very humble guy. Also sat alongside Nico in this interview is George Warren. George is an American. He's from Williamsburg in Virginia, educated at Eastman School of Music and then at NYU, New York University, where he did his master's. He's also a fascinating guy, and just think about how good he must be, right? So he was kind of like a freelance, he'll talk about this in the interview, but he was a freelance composer, did various different bits and pieces, and then was invited into this collective. So we're talking about very, very high level composers and two really, really nice guys, true gents who are very grateful for where they're at. And they're already doing great things. And, they're both young guys as well. So it makes me think, wow, what is ahead of them? So anyway, so I get the chance to talk to them. I ask them about their creative processes, what got them to where they are now, what their plans are moving forward, etc. So I'm going to hand over the interview and take note and enjoy. George, Nico, welcome to the Music Business Buddy. I'm really, really glad that you can join me for this chat today. First and foremost, how are you both?
Great. Yeah. Thanks so much for having us. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
Oh no. The pleasure is mine. There's loads of things that I would love to ask you about, but I'm mindful that that we're going to try and keep this to sort of 30 minutes or so I'll try and be concise. I would like to ask this question to get things rolling, because it's a question that I'm sure many composers would like to ask you. What is it like to be a part of the composer collective, Bleeding Fingers?
Sure. I've been at Bleeding Fingers since 2022, and it's been such an incredible experience. I've learned, I would say, everything I know about this job. I learned it here. I worked for Cara Talby, who's a senior composer here. And now I'm a composer of my own, and I'm working on incredible projects with incredible people. And it's great to just be around inspiring composers.
Yeah, I'm new next to Nico. I've been here about 8 months and was a freelancer before this. And it's amazing to come to work and get paid to write music all day, every day. It's kind of a blessing, and to be able to collaborate, with Nico. This is really the first time that I have experienced working in tandems, splitting a project down the middle, and it's been an amazing experience. It's great to have a collective of people that you can go knock on their door and ask them to come sing for you, or can I borrow your guitar? And it's an amazing environment.
That's lovely, because I've spoken to quite a lot of composers on the pod recently, even more so, especially in fact, and generally, it is a freelancers marketplace, isn't it? So that's the background that you come from, George. Were you working kind of predominantly, largely on your own before the move?
I was doing. Yeah, I mean, I was doing just about anything I could to pay the bills and stay, staying within this industry as best I could. But yeah, I was writing additional music, writing for libraries, orchestrating, assisting. I assisted one person in particular, a great deal, named Alex Heffus, who's just a phenomenal composer as well as person, and so that all of these experiences really kind of helped to get me better, get me to a point at which I could take on a job like this.
Good for you. Well done. That's inspiring to hear that. Good for you. It speaks volumes about what you're capable of and how hard you've worked to get there. That's really good. This is a question for both of you, and it's in regards to like the collection of your composer royalties and your neighbouring rights. Do you have like a contractual relationship with music publishers yourselves, or do you have like your own publishing setup, or is that automatically kind of contracted through is it Extreme Music? I think Extreme Music are in partnership with Bleeding Fingers, right? Are you signed to them as well?
Yeah, so the good thing for us, because we don't have to worry about it, but yeah, the good thing is that a lot of the registering of the works and the collection of the royalties is handled by Extreme Music, which is they publish our music on their website. So. Oh
wow! Okay. Oh, yeah, that's the dream, right? Is to not have to worry about anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we're very busy writing music every day, so it's truly a privilege to not have to worry about that and just focus on the creative side. Mm-hmm. But it is very important, and it's important to be aware of how things work.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's an interesting one, because there's a lot of composers that like the sort of freedom of being able to do work on single song assignments, for example, or per project, or look after their own publishing or whatever. But really, largely that can often be about hey, I need to ensure that there's a rigorous collection for everything that I'm working on here. And, having the power of, Extreme, I mean, they are specialists in production music, and they've got boots on the ground globally, because there's so many different nuances to collections from, if you think about how collection is done in Italy, for example, Nico, there's different nuances, right, than there is in North America. Again, there's differences in Germany and Japan, and, so by having a company that acts on your behalf globally, it must take a lot of pressure off your shoulders in some respects.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah.
Good for you. That's good. Now, I would love to understand a little bit about your creative processes. Although I guess there are, of course, various different approaches to doing what you do, and it might be that your creative processes vary dependent upon the project that you're working on. So if I just kind of use a little bit of context, if I take an example, so the work that you did on the NBC series The Americas, Nico, or the work that you did, George, on HBO's The Regime. Did you compose the music to the visual, or compose the music independently from the visual that was then licensed further down the line? What was it like on those particular processes for you?
Well, really, any project that I've ever worked on, it's not only different project to project, but day to day, like depending on whether or not we have picture, when we spot with the client or whatever, we could be. I've been in situations where I've been writing away from picture. I'll create like suites based on ideas, characters, script lines, whatever, and then I'll have like a body of work that I could kind of go off of, if elements of it work. But oftentimes it's we'll have the picture and again, day to day can be totally different. I've been in situations where I'm watching the picture 10 times in a row, getting ideas in my head, and I'm starting to put those ideas to work at the keyboard. Other times I'm like watching it and I'm improvising, right in real time, and or other days I'm just searching for sounds, trying to create sounds. It varies. It's very improvisatory or improvisatory, whatever the word is. It's
that's a big word. Have a house point.
Yeah.
George, you said something very interesting there about the sound design aspect of it. Do you sometimes feel like there's a certain pressure on you to have to create, because let's face it, sound design can be a very different process than the actual process of composition, structural arrangement decisions. Yeah. Do you kind of spend time just independently away from composition, just on designing and choosing new sounds to select?
Yeah, I think we both do. That's I think a big part of a lot of the composers here do that. I think it's a big part of being current and trying new things, trying to create new sounds is now, I think, a really crucial part of the compositional process for a lot of modern composers, because it's you can only use 1, 4, 5 so many times with string ensemble, but yeah, I pressure. I guess we do have pressure to do that, but moreover, it's kind of it's an opportunity to create new sounds, things you've never heard before.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, now that's good to hear. And Nico, what about your approach to the Americas? I've watched that and I love it. By the way, I absolutely love that TV show, and I'd watched it before I knew I was going to be talking to you. So when I was reading up on you, I was like, oh great, wow, that's so cool. I love it when that happens. What was the approach like for that? Were you writing to the visual, or was it a case of that being a separate process and you just concentrate on the music standalone?
Yeah, no, it would be the first case. So we would get sequences. The way the series is structured is every episode goes over a certain region in the Americas, and one sequence might be about a specific animal, and the next scene you just move to a completely different place. But for each sequence, we would get the footage with some temp music, which is it can be a blessing or a curse. It varies a lot. But to me personally, it helps me get a better idea of what the director or the client is going for in a specific sequence. And then based off of that, you start coming up with ideas. And the cool thing about the series is that the approach for the series was that every animal or every character that we see in the series needs to have its own theme. So we really developed so many themes for each character of the series, and got to develop them throughout whatever was happening on the screen. So a very Pixar approach, if you will.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. Are there times where you kind of start the ideation process of a new creative idea, but then perhaps don't necessarily have the right sort of project for it? If so, do you kind of finish that idea and bank it and return to it once the right project comes up? Or are you sometimes left with, hey, I've got ideas floating around here and I don't know what to do with them? Like, how do you manage that process?
In my opinion, or in my experience, I've always felt anything you create is going to be repurposed somehow. Usually, I try to figure out if the idea that I'm developing is the right one early before I spend a lot of time on it. But by the time the idea is finished, it's either going to be the right one for the project or it's going to be the perfect one for the next one. But yeah, the ideas tend to be finished. So I personally don't have a lot of stuff that's like in progress left there. It's finished, and then it might be the perfect thing for the next project or the next pitch.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm totally different.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Tell me more, George.
Well, only because I usually I feel like I can be pretty chaotic when I'm writing, and sometimes I'll start something, away from picture, and I'll kind of like it, and then 5 hours in I hate it, and then 2 years later I'll think back to but I always save them. I save them with the date too. I've got like a bunch of folders of things that I've tried in the past. And I do use them sometimes, rarely, but sometimes I'll be stumped on a scene or a track or whatever, and I'll think, oh, you know what, there was that like one weird sound that I got like last November from for whatever that might work here, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I've got folder after folder of things that I've just, I'm like, it's not worth it. And then sometimes they turn out to be themes of a project or full-fledged, pieces of music that I end up loving. But yeah, there's a lot of unfinished stuff.
You made me think of something. I don't know if you do this as well, but sometimes I just hum something on the phone, like voice memos. Yeah. I have loads of those. But never like on Cubase.
Oh,
They're all on my phone.
On your phone, so. I gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. So with that in mind, it's really interesting to hear the differences between you in that respect. So Nico, let's take, for example, one of those ideas that you've hummed into your phone. Do you kind of like bank those somewhere, and then like, do you ever kind of put aside time to kind of go, let me just have a look at some of these? Or is it just something that if it doesn't hit you and stay with you, that you kind of just can it?
I should go back and look at all of them because I have a lot. And I should set aside some time to make sure there's still good ideas. But yeah, I see it more of it's a resource. Like sometimes it's hard to be creative every day. So if you're really stuck, just it's worth going through them and see if you can just use one of them, or maybe it sparks a new idea, or it unlocks whatever scene or sequence you're working on.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah,
true.
that's a good point. I suppose also the part of what is informing the process is also the need for what you are processing. Because if for example, if you're solely in the lane of bespoke composition and scoring, that's very different from, say, working on library projects where you're kind of more speculatively creating something that may or may not be useful 10 years down the line. So even though it's still composition, they're quite different paths in many ways, aren't they?
Yeah.
Different processes,
I would love to ask you both about your music education, because I read a little bit about both of you on the Bleeding Fingers website. So how, it's probably a silly question this. The question is, how important was it in setting you up in your career route? I mean, is that a silly question? Did it seems like obvious yes to me, but I'm interested to see what you think. What was that kind of, if you compare, what you learned in your music education to where you're at now in your careers, how important was it?
Very pivotal. Every step of the way, even the bad aspects. Not that there were many, but I went to school first. I got my bachelor's in piano performance. I was like dead set on becoming a performer. I was a performer at that point and really loved it, but it got me, I got a great education from Eastman in both piano, music theory, composition, great foundation for a lot of those technical aspects of writing and understanding music, and as well as virtuosity and all that. But it also taught me about what I didn't want to do. I inadvertently, I realized that performance wasn't for me, and that what I loved was the music itself, but I just hated being told how to play. I would I couldn't help but make whatever I was performing my own, and I realized that wasn't, that wasn't really right. What you're doing when you're performing is you're polishing an artifact. It's not yours. It's you're keeping an art form alive. So that's why I decided to write music. And then NYU helped to provide other fundamentals. That was, the technical aspects of scoring to picture, hybrid orchestration. I got a great education there and all of that. And then honestly, assisting people was an incredible. I mean, I know that's not really, that's not going to a university, but it was probably some of the most important education I received. Was watching how professionals, did this crazy job, and learning about how to do it. That was, I think, every step of the way. Yeah.
When it came to kind of watching others do what they do, George, did you ever have any of those kind of eureka penny drop moments where you kind of go, oh, that's how I do things, that's reassuring? Did you ever have any moments like that?
Yeah. I mean, well, I guess more, I think, especially in the case with Alex, the fellow I mentioned before, he is amazing at what he does. He's not only an incredible writer, but he's very, very efficient. He's fast. I mean, he takes the time that he needs to develop ideas and whatnot, but he's just, he's done this a lot, and for many years, and is a true master. So it was more a case, I think, at least regarding him, of me just being like, that's how I want to do it. Like I want to be able to get to this level of efficiency and writing and talking to directors and like the whole gambit. It was more that. And that's why I call that an education in and of itself, because it was, he's a true mentor, and finding a relationship like that is, I think, very beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. And more rare than perhaps people think as well.
Yeah, I think so.
That kind of mentoring and also, it kind of helps your ideals a little bit there. You mentioned a little bit about how realizing that being a performer was not necessarily for you. If you wanted to if you were playing a song and you go, let me just tweak this and play this how I think I should play it. There's that's the composer bug in you there, right? So it's good that you found the path that you're on now. Good for you. What about you, Nico? The role of your music education in setting you up, what was it like?
Yeah, I have to say a lot of what George just said resonates with me. I think realizing I wasn't a performer, I had the same experience. I went to Berkeley College of Music in Boston, and I went there as a saxophone performance major.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, and alto is my main instrument. A lot of people think I play piano for some reason, but I just give.
It's just a composer thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I went there as a performance major, and I went there with a mindset, coming from Italy, Milan. It's not a big city. It's a big city in Italy, but it's not a big city. And I thought, I think I got this. Like I'm gonna go there, and I think I'm gonna be okay. And then I remember the first week, just walking through the hallways in the practice rooms, and I got in a practice room and I didn't even open my instrument. I just started listening because I could hear what everyone else was practicing. And I just remember thinking, where the hell am I?
It's a humbling experience.
Yeah, truly humbling. I think I'm not the only one that had this experience. I know, I believe it was Alan Silvestri who had basically the same experience. Granted, when he heard someone play, he went and checked who it was, and he wasn't famous or anything yet, but it was Michael Brecker. So one of the most legendary jazz saxophone players.
Wow.
But yeah, that moment for me was like, okay, I'm gonna be here in college 4 years, and it's gonna take me 4 years to get to this level, and then who knows if they might not make it. So what says, who's gonna say that I'm gonna make it? Luckily, that same semester, first semester, I was enrolled in an intro to film scoring class, and I loved film. I've always loved film. But when I took that class, I realized, okay, it's not only a job that exists, because in Italy, there's not a lot of exposure. Maybe now I think there's more courses and universities that do that, but in 2018, I studied at Scientific High School. I had no idea this was possible. But also, more importantly, I found out that I could do it. You know? So
wow.
From that moment on, I never looked back. Yeah.
That's extremely inspiring. It's very courageous. It's a very courageous and admirable path for both of you. Nico, you was mentioning there. About 2018. It's not that long ago in some ways, right?
Right. Yeah.
And there's quite a lot changed for you. Yeah. There must have been we must have those moments, right, where you feel slightly daunted by others around you, and you go, wow, they are so good at what they do. And it kind of, in a really humbling, you used the word humbling, George, I think. In fact, it is humbling, right? To go, right, I've just kind of had my ass kicked there a little bit.
Yeah.
That's good. That's going to,
Yeah.
It's going to make you better. It's going to improve you,
No doubt. And it happens here,
Right. Well, it must do, I guess.
I mean, I've listened to, like, one of the first cues that I heard of Nico's was for the project we're working on now. I remember listening to that and be like, holy shit. How am I gonna top that or
he's just being kind for the podcast.
No, it's true. I told my wife about it. I was like, I'm really in for it now. So yeah.
Well, just remember that you're both there on merit, and there'll be many people that listen to what you do and go, oh my God, I want to cut my fingers off. I can never do what they do, So I guess we all have those humbling moments at different points. May I ask you about the tools that you use? Because I know that there's a lot of composers and producers that listen to the show that often want to know, what tools people are using. Your favourite kind of software composite, are you using sort of Pro Tools, Cubase, Ableton, and what kind of go-to tools are you using within that? I guess that's going to kind of vary a little bit between you. Nico, let's come to your good self first.
So software, I guess the DAW would be, the main one, Cubase in my case. A lot of people here actually use Cubase.
Mm-hmm.
It's either Cubase or Logic. And then I will say, actually, I'm trying to use more and more my saxophone into my writing. It's funny because I just said, I realized I wasn't a performer, and I felt like I separated myself a little bit from the instrument. I wasn't practicing a lot. I still don't practice enough. Mm-hmm. But now I'm trying to bring it back in an experimental way, just like textures, and try to play the instrument as it was not meant to be played to create more interesting sounds.
That's interesting. So is that like certain situations where it might be that the source sound was a sax, but by the time you've kind of processed the sound, it sounds like something different and synthetic?
Right, yeah, a little bit of sound design, as we mentioned earlier.
Very good.
I will also mention Serum 2. It's a very, very powerful tool, and I feed the saxophone through Serum 2, create new pads, granular synthesis. It's a really powerful tool. So yeah.
Very good. Okay.
He's made such awesome sounds. All just with the saxophone. Really.
And what about yourself, George? What are your kind of go-to tools at the moment?
Also Cubase. I chase picture with Pro Tools because I hate importing it into Cubase. So I have another machine that runs Pro Tools in the background. And then I'm still a pianist. I try to put in piano to most of what I do. I have a little iPad that it runs TouchOSC, and I have a template that I've just been building on for the past 3 years that works with a generic remote in Cubase, and that has, like I was saying about efficiency, and that has brought my personally. I mean, everyone has their own process. Not everyone uses things like this. Not everyone needs to, but for me, I'm the type that I don't like thinking a whole lot about things other than like music. So if I have a button to press that shows me all my violin ones, or shows me all the data, or things like that, it just helps my brain. So that's a big one.
Interesting. Well, it makes your process more efficient, I guess, as
Yes.
well. And,
Yeah.
you know, because, otherwise it's easy to procrastinate, isn't it? So that anything that stops that or, slows it down is good.
Yeah.
That's really, really interesting to hear. Especially on the sound design side as well, because I guess there's a certain pressure on you both, and all your colleagues to have to, steer away from things that you can't use on a licensing level, right? So certain, like for example, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who composes the score, and he said, I came across this great sound pack, but it's absolutely brilliant, but I can only use it on a temp level because you can't use it for certain things that are going to get commissioned on certain channels or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, I never knew that was the thing. Is that a battle for you sometimes? Is that something that you come across, or do you feel like you can kind of pretty much use whatever you want?
I think there's a distinction to be made in our case. You mentioned this as well, like temp. When we are pitching for something, I think it tends to be okay for us to use samples or libraries that like I might not be clear on whether I can use it or not in the project. But for the pitching process, I think it's important to use all the tools at your disposal, and then figure it out later. Get the gig, and then figure out what you can and cannot use. For library music, I think that's a different case. Also, the stuff that we have on our machines tends to be cleared beforehand. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a game changer. Okay, yeah, that saves a lot of because it's just better to fix that in advance, isn't it, rather than having to then worry about it further down the line and go, that great sound we've got, we can't use it because of this. Yeah. Damn,
right.
That's great. But of course, the more innovative you can be, the better, right? I mean, you mentioned there, Nico, about using your sax to kind of create pad sounds, granular synthesis and stuff. That's great, right? Nobody else has got that, not in the way that you've done it. That's super.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, like anything signature or like that's gonna stand out in the foreground, that's gonna be custom made. I think everyone here is pretty big on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good culture to be around. Final question for you both is I'd like to ask you about any tips that you could give to emerging composers, people that see themselves, moving into where you are in their future, whether that be in the field that you're in or whether that be more on a library level, or maybe that might be more for ads or for video games or whatever it might be. Are there any particular tips? Perhaps if you could spend, let's say, a few minutes with a much younger version of yourself and just sit there for a few minutes and go, these are the things you need to know. Like, what would be those things that you would share? I
had a fella tell me when I was at NYU, I think the best advice that I at least for me, that I was given was network like crazy, and that 80% of this industry is how you shake the other person's hand. And I mean, you need to have a solid reel. You have to know how to write. The production has to be, perfect. But that's the bar that has been set. Is that that it's a very saturated market. There are a lot of people who are really good at this. So it's if you've made it into a room full of professional composers, it's assumed that you're sort of you're meant to be there or whatever. So yeah, the next thing is, are you a good hang? And who have you met, and like who do you know? And it seems to be the case, at least in my experience, that you just have to try to be in every room that you can be, meet as many people as you can, reach out, ask for advice, ask for a chat, a coffee, or whatever, from people you admire, people who are one notch up the ladder from you, people who are, who maybe aren't, or even your idols. I think that's just, there are so many people who I know, I've went to school with, friends of mine who are far better than me, and I think luck plays a huge role in it, but I've also been pretty relentless in my networking, and I think that has at least made a partial difference. Yeah.
That's sound advice. Yeah, much appreciated. And what about yourself, Nico? What would you have said to 2017 Nico in Milan? Studying science and going, I don't know about this path over here. I'm going to end up over here doing this. What would you have said to yourself? What advice?
Well, first I would like to add, I completely agree with everything George said. I will add, try to do it in a genuine way.
Yeah.
Or it's a given. Do it in a genuine way, because especially nowadays with social media and you're exposed to everyone's success constantly, because no one is going to post about their failures and stuff. So that creates.
That's the thing. Yeah, you don't see people posting about failures, do you?
I was fired.
I'm going to start that. I'm going to start.
I have loads of failures. I'm going to start posting about them. Yeah.
But yeah, that creates huge pressure and anxiety, especially if I put myself on in the shoes of a student graduating now in the age of AI. It's very stressful. So to network in this environment, I would certainly feel like I'm desperate to make the connection, and it becomes, everything is amplified. I'm getting stressed out just now thinking about it. It's incredible. So try to do it in a genuine way, and then I will add, it's gonna be okay. Not success doesn't look the same for everyone, and there's many ways to get to the same result. I'll tell you this story. When I graduated, I was extremely lucky. I got this assistantship here at Bleeding Fingers. But some of my classmates also applied and didn't get it. And I truly think some of them had a better reel than me. They had better credits, by then. For whatever reason, I got the position. And then 2 years later, they joined the company as well. So they went completely a different route, but we ended up in the same place, basically at the same time, both composers. So there's not, only one way to achieve success, whatever that might look for you. Just focus on, it's a marathon. So try to make it sustainable for yourself mentally and financially. Expose yourself to all the different income streams. So library music, video game music, there's a world out there of opportunities. And then, network genuinely. Try to make friends.
Yeah, absolutely sound advice. I know that you mentioned there about social media, Nico. I know that it's I've spoken to a lot of young music creators that really struggle with that concept of kind of overly comparing themselves, let's say, to other people and their successes, and kind of going, I don't feel good about myself, I'm 46 years old, right? So I'll say, ignore it. It's easy for me to say, right? Because I didn't grow up around it. That is very, very, very good advice. Guys, it's been a pleasure talking to you here today. May I just say this as well, that, obviously you're both, immensely gifted and talented people, but that didn't come out of nowhere, right? You both worked like hell and made a lot of sacrifices to make this happen. And I think that says a lot about you as people just as much as it does say about you as composers. I think you're a fantastic influence, fantastic role models for that next generation coming through. And I wish you nothing but love and luck going forward in all your projects, all your ideas. You're both fantastic acquisitions for Bleeding Fingers. I'm sure they're well aware of that, which is why you're sat in those chairs. And I just wish you good luck and thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you so much, Johnny. It's been a pleasure.
Top fellas, very, very, very good, very insightful, very modest, very, very hardworking. You know, you could just see in the studio environment they were in that, you know, that they really relish being around so many other people that are doing what they do. I think when you're a composer, it can at times, if we're not careful, feel like a kind of sense of solitary confinement. It clearly isn't for those guys. They are like-minded, they're around like-minded souls, and they all bring the best out of each other and make utterly outstanding music. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that today. I know I certainly enjoyed talking to them and listening to them. Anyway, wherever you are, guys, just keep believing in what you're doing, right? And just remember that there are absolutely stacks and stacks of pathways to glory for what you want to do in your career. Never forget that. Okay, that's enough from me today. Have a great day and may the force be with you.
The music